I'm here with Tom Badley, the NFT artist and banknote extraordinaire. How's it going, Tom?
It's going great. Thank you.
I figured I'd add the banknote extraordinaire on there just because this conversation is highly classified, I guess you could say, in terms of all of the cool things that we're going to dive into. But before we get into just your experience, because I watched some of your videos on YouTube and it was just mesmerizing watching you with the is it called the stylus? You go through and etch all of these um, designs. It's just so cool,
Right.
and it was so cool. So amazing job on that. But before we get into it, what's your background? What's your origin story? How did you get into the NFT space, and how did you get started?
Okay. So I'm an artist. I've always been an artist in one way or another. And I was really sort of making art, before anything else, before I could do anything else, apart from walk. I think I was making art after I was walking. I'm not sure. But yeah, new art was what I wanted to do very, very early on. So, was just drawing constantly, went to art school, and actually picked up video. And art school was I did a bit of everything, painting, sculpture, the whole thing. But art school was amazing. But actually, the turning point for me was the financial crisis, 2008, which was my graduation year. So I graduated, amazing summer, lots of celebrations, and then the markets crashed, and hadn't been interested in the markets prior to that. I mean, I was a child, I was like 22, 23, you know, artist. I mean, what people who attend art school are interested in the financial markets. So for some reason, this event just left this lasting impression on me and just sort of flipped my world upside down. And it led me to look into money and what is money and where does money come from. And it wasn't long until I heard about Bitcoin and alternative forms of money. And actually, what I ended up doing instinctively is picking up something that had interested me prior to art school, which was my interest in banknote design. And I thought the way our paper money looked and felt was absolutely fascinating to me because here you've got this little piece of paper that packs so much and there's sort of so much branding and typography and processes in this one little thing, and it's not immediately obvious how they're created. So it's just fascinating, the artistry behind it, and the stories behind it, and of course the history of banknote design, or the history of money design, is the history of the world, because you can trace human history through its money. So everything about it is just fascinating to me. So it led to lots of interesting experiences, traveling the world, researching, taking on some interesting jobs here and there. For a short time, I worked in an auction house and actually worked in the banknote department. There was an antique banknote department in this auction house. So had amazing access to all these sort of rare banknotes, which, for a nerd like me is just, it's heaven. So eventually I was picked up by people in the banknote industry, and I ended up working in what most people would call a money factory, a factory that literally prints money. And so I was there designing and conceiving of designs for banknotes and other security documents. So banknotes are part of this constellation of documents that we call security documents, and security printing is like the big daddy of commercial printing. Like there's nothing that's more precise, there's nothing that's more technical than security printing. So I learned all these really secret processes, and it was incredible. It was an amazing experience, and I got so much from it. But I'm an artist at my core, so I was still making art, and it was about 2007 where my friend said, "You got to look at NFTs." Sorry, 2017. Get my numbers mixed up. 2017, my friend said, "You got to look at NFTs. You got to look at all these projects." And I ignored him, and as I thought it was dumb. So I watched on, and I watched with some fascination, and finally, uh, it was all I could think about, and that's what led to me going to an event in the UK, and I met lots of people at this sort of Bitcoin conference in the north of England, and they're all talking about NFTs. NFTs were the talk of the town, and it was amazing. I remember one of the platform founders, um, Dave over at Known Origin. He did a talk, was captivated by the whole thing. I think I remember as soon as the talk finished, I just ran up to him and sort of shoved one of my banknote designs in his face,
Mhm.
and it was a few weeks later that I was on the platform. And the other thing that happened in that conference is I met um, just by chance. It was the last day, and people were kind of clearing up and going home, and it just so happened that I was sat on this table, and the other people around the table were it was Vesa, who's a big artist in space, and of course Trevor Jones, and they were having a little conversation with each other, and I knew these guys were artists, and it's the first time I met them, but I'd never ever heard artists having a conversation like they had, and I was just blown away because for the first time I felt like I was having a real conversation with artists about real stuff. And we talked about the art world. We talked a little bit about money. We talked obviously about crypto and the NFT space. And that's where I really felt like something different was happening with NFTs, where it could be this thing,
Mhm.
or crypto art. It could be this thing that frees art from a kind of very narrow space that the art world deals in. And if you can imagine coming from art school, going through all that, um, and then there was lots of interactions with galleries, and so all I'd known is the art world. All I'd known is how to be in the art world, and the art world sort of has this very narrow idea of what it wants and what it doesn't want. And suddenly I was looking at these artists, who were self-sustaining, and that blew me away. And that's I have to say that went a long way to inspiring me into getting into NFTs. Um, and here we are today.
Nice. Nice. So you have that kind of monumental conversation about the art space. And I love the fact that it was just a new type of conversation that you've never really had before with fellow artists, that it really opened up your mind into this digital revolution, you could call it, with artists. So what happened then? Did you start a listing on Known Origin with like a one banknote design that you had been thinking of, or did you have like a body of work that you wanted to just put it all out there at once on something like Known Origin?
So I already had a body of work. That was 2019. I've been making artwork on and off, you know, since art school.
Mhm.
Uh, I was like, 11 years out of art school by that point. So that's a lot of work. But um, as soon as I started interacting with the space, it opened up new possibilities. So I almost felt like whatever I'd done before was kind of just a test run.
Mm.
It was just, I mean, it was good stuff, in the last 11 years that I'd made, but it was all practice. It was all just, mere practice for the NFT space. So that was my Genesis NFT on Known Origin on the 27th of June, 2019. So it wasn't, the first wave of artists in the space, like 2017, I wasn't in there first, but, I recently asked on Twitter, what is an OG? What is an NFT OG? And apparently, according to like consensus, I'm in the OG club, so feeling good about that.
Nice.
But interacting with the space, it generated all these other ideas, and from there, designs, inspiration started coming for things that I thought this very particular, very almost tribal space would appreciate, and that's what has sort of spurred me on a lot, since then.
Nice. So I know that a lot of, my mother, she's been a visual artist my entire life. And I
Wow.
showed her NFTs and she saw the opportunity of, not having knockoffs floating around. Like, the intent of the artist is from that original address, like the signature. But I
Yeah.
think that there's still like this chasm between visual artists and digital artists. And you've successfully made that jump. What kind of tools are you using for somebody out there that's, like yourself, they went through art school, they've developed their craft, and they've really want to get involved in the NFT space? What type of tools are you using to do your pieces, these incredible banknote pieces?
Well, I have to say that there's really like two sides to my practice, and they're both super important to me. So the digital stuff is obviously, I love the fact that it's authenticated on the blockchain. It's has this provenance tracking and security and all the things that NFTs provide.
Mm.
And then of course, you can add programmatic stuff into it. And then animation, which is another tool which I am. There are animators out there that are incredible. I'm not one of them. But the other side is the physical side, and I use banknote materials, so watermark paper that with embedded fibers. I do something called intaglio printing, which is I guess intaglio is 500-year-old technique, but the way I do it, I've kind of combined that ultra high resolution of banknote printing with intaglio printing, and it's sort of unique outside of the banknote world. So that's I'm really feel really proud of that work that's physical as well. Um, in terms of design, I mean, it goes back to the Adobe products, like Photoshop, Illustrator. The real exciting stuff happens when things go from Illustrator um, to making a printing plate, like a physical plate
Mm.
that is used to actually print things that look like money, and an art that has a similar quality to money. And just kind of wanted to reinforce that is that I haven't seen another artist do that. I think I must be the only artist in the world who is using these processes outside of the banknote world to any degree of precision to create artwork that is has the same qualities and the same processes as banknote production.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of reinforces that whole sort of authentication, secure thing that you get with NFTs. Because of course, the physical work is, it's anti-counterfeit. Like it's really hard to copy. There might be, invisible inks that can only be seen under UV light. There might be patterns that deform if you try and photocopy the artwork. All different things like that that just reinforce the security of the physical artwork. So yeah, the digital side and the physical side both super important to me. To make those portraits, I use a tablet, just a bog standard iPad, and a vector drawing program for that.
Nice. Yeah, I love the concept of having those two worlds kind of communicating with each other, where you have this physical banknote and you have the the virtual one. I think that that's such a cool, almost like backing it, like you get the NFT and it's kind of backed by that. So when someone, let's say, comes to you and says, "I want a custom design," are you doing designs just that come to you, or is it someone, because I saw you had a Kanye design, has anybody ever come and said, hey, I want my face on the $20 US bill? And have you ever done anything like that custom?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of, I mean, all the stuff in that is like on chain it's my artwork. It's speculative. So Kanye West didn't come to me. It's like that's something that I made, for the blockchain essentially. But yeah, I do private commissions and people say, look, I want a banknote with my face on. uh, and yeah, and it's great. I treat it like a design project, like anything else. Whether it's an individual or huge institution, it's all about finding out what they want to achieve, what they want, what means something to them, what would be a win for them, and creating that beautiful work of art at the end of the day. It might not be their face, like it's the whole design has things that are relevant to them, that have an emotional connection to them. So it's sort of this completely bespoke artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's lots of, I mean, for this kind of stuff, there's lots of things that you have to put on there because it has such a close likeness to cash that it's not legal tender, it cannot be used legal tender, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
That authentic feel, that authentic look, is so seductive. And we say, in the industry, like banknotes are kind of the ultimate business card in a way. They're the business card of a country. They're the business card of a whole central bank. And to have something personal with the same level of gravitas is like super special. So yeah, it's fun.
So one thing that I was wondering right when I saw, I'm glad you cleared up, it's not used as legal tender, but you did work in like a minting factory. And I think everybody listening and watching this, I'm sure, is wondering as well as myself what that process is like. Can you share, what it was like from you working with this large institution to design it all the way through to getting into the hand of a citizen? What was the time frames there? What was that process like?
Um, wow, what can I say? I mean, I'll say that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
that possibly never sees the light of day. Like you might do designs that will never be used. There's so much that's done that's just speculative, and perhaps the design isn't used, and then it's just tossed in the bin,
Mm-hmm.
or it sits on a hard drive forever. But as you can imagine, super high security. It's the closest you can be as a graphic designer to sort of work in a pseudo military environment with security checkpoints and pat downs and one man trap doors. You have to sort of iris scan, not quite iris scans, but thumbprints and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean it is high security for a reason because you're dealing with state secrets and the consequences of even a design, even a concept of a design, leaving the perimeter of a banknote factory are catastrophic. So you've just undermined the currency of an entire nation. So incredibly high security, and it makes for like a very dynamic working environment because you have all that, but at the same time you might be flying off to meet central bank, and you'll meet with them and discuss what they want and how best to meet their needs. And these institutions, they put so much. The whole thing is down to trust, right? The financial system. So the whole design process, the whole production process, it's all about reinforcing trust,
Mm-hmm.
trust in the money system. and it's very interesting that crypto is trustless, and the amount of effort that goes into reinforcing the sense of trust in the technology, in the design, in the themes that are on the notes. Yeah, it's outside of that, it's just like any other design job, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Outside of the borderline military style security. I love it. I love it. That's such a rare experience that like not many people get to have. So I think it's very special that you got to have that.
Yeah,
And
it was amazing, and it taught me a lot about myself. And it was also a foreign language environment, so you know I couldn't speak the language, um, and so learning the language in the country that I was working in was interesting. And you just there's in that environment, you know, you just learn so much about what you're made of. Yeah, it's an experience that I wanted and needed on almost every level of my being, I think.
nice. So shifting gears a little bit, what are you excited about? Because I love getting people's perspectives on. There's just so many things going on in this space right now that it's kind of inundating. But
Mm.
I'm always eager to hear everybody's excitement levels. And obviously with the Beeple sale going on and art and artists really having this revolution going on, what are you thinking about day in and day out, and what are you excited about?
Wow. Excited, overwhelmed. It's overwhelming. What am I thinking about day to day? Just trying to get over the line on all the things that I've got to do. um, but I mean, in terms of the space, it's so rapid. It's changing so fast, and we're going to be in a completely different place in like 3 months, a
Hmm.
completely different place in 6 months, and you know, never mind, you know, a year. The space since I entered has become, well, I mean, it's crossed the mainstream threshold for sure. This year, you know, when I started, it was almost the feeling was almost like kids in the playground, like trading cards, you know, amongst each other,
Hmm.
and sort of you know, looking over each other's shoulder and sort of being wide-eyed about what each other's doing, giving each other props, and it was all quite innocent, you know.
Yeah.
And now, you know, 69 million sales, Christie's, you know, that's big stuff. So that is exciting. That is hugely exciting. It's exciting that people will begin to express themselves through art um, in a way that they've never really done before. Um, I liken it to the access that people have to, say, market information. And it was only like 2 decades ago where if you wanted to trade a stock, you had to ring up your broker and then, plug in the modem or whatever people did. and and there'll be, you'd have to wait, there'd be huge slippage and all this sort of, clunky stuff. And then as things have got, with higher internet speeds and faster market information, you've got trading view, like huge, these massive resources for the everyday person just to access incredible data and indicators and tools and stuff like that. Whilst that's happened, the notion of being a trader, of trading stocks has become sort of, it's become part of mainstream culture. It's not just this thing that is done behind closed doors in an office. It is part of pop culture, like the whole thing with like GameStop, that sort of thing,
Hmm.
and all the memes that develop from it. So there's that. That's with trading. Now with art, it's gonna sort of, all the memes that are to come, and all these sort of the interest, the sort of rejuvenated interest in art history, because inevitably, as people begin calling themselves artists, and anyone can call themselves an artist, then curiosity develops. You start developing a visual lexicon, and then you dig a little bit deeper to see where that visual lexicon originates from, and then you get into art history, and then before you know it, you're an expert. And the phenomenon is not just in the producing. We have the rising phenomenon of the artist stroke collector, not the artist and the collector, but the artist and stroke collector in one person, in one entity. And that's significant of a completely unprecedented level of autonomy that people have with their own assets, with their own expression. And the mind boggles as to how far that can go. I'm struggling to put it into words, because it's almost like the internet landing on your lap in 2000 and what even 2000. I'm terrible with dates today. In like 1997.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to actually figure out, where the final destination is. And the answer is there is no final destination. This thing just keeps on going and keeps on sort of reforming and metastasizing, if that's the word. And what has been set in motion with digital assets is something that will exist for decades, possibly centuries. So that's pretty damn exciting.
Yeah.
To be on the ground floor of that, to be one of those, not first, but I would say, one of the first waves of artists who is interested in that, is that in itself is huge. Could never have dreamed, as a child artist, that this form of barter, which is essentially what it is, this form of monetization of everything would exist.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well said. I think it's a once in a lifetime, once in a generation style transfer of wealth and everything that's going on right now. And I love the fact that artists are at the forefront of it. It's a very near and dear to me. And I think it's a very, very cool aspect. And that kind of leads me to the final piece here, which is that, it's difficult to explain your art to people, and it's beautiful. And I've really enjoyed looking through the YouTube videos and things like that, but I think people need to experience it for themselves. So with that said, where can people go and learn more about your banknote work?
Sure. So you can check out my work on my own website, which is www.tombadley.net. I'm also on, you can search me on Known Origin, Super Rare, BAE, and Rareable, and of course OpenSea. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitter at Currency Design, and it has a link to all my social media there. And I'm also on Instagram as well, Tom_Badley_crypto art.
Nice. Nice. Well, wherever you guys are listening or watching, all the links to what Tom mentioned will be in the description. And once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, Tom. This was really fun. And thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.